Hey everybody, welcome back to This Day in History. It is July 28th, 2024. Not that it matters about the year, it's about the history of the date. It is a bright, beautiful day. It's later afternoon. It's like 5:30-ish or something like that. I came to the park here, the same park that I've been here before, here in Aurora, where my dad was the chief. But I'm sitting in a different place, so I don't get, you know, hit by frisbee golfers. But we have some pretty interesting stuff today. It took up a whole page, so that's cool. We have some interesting birthdays. One of them is extended family for me, anyway. And I'll explain that in a moment. But others are, we have a, we'll just get into it, shall we? So 1844, Gerard Manley Hopkins, he was a British Victorian era writer who, he influenced a lot of 20th century poetry and other writings. At any rate, Gerard Hopkins was born on this day in 1844. French artist Marcel Duchamp was born 1887. British philosopher Karl Popper was born in 1902. And here's my extended kin here. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, she was an American First Lady. She was the 35th First Lady, as John F. Kennedy was the 35th President. And I am related to John F. Kennedy, very distantly on my mother's side. But Jackie was born on this day in 1929. 1954, we have the birth of Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. And Chavez he wasn't a nice guy. He likened himself to being like Simon Bolivar, who was he fought for independence, basically a freedom fighter. Chavez, we bought oil from Venezuela, and Chavez did not like the United States, and so he would do some messed up stuff to, jack up the oil prices. And it's partly because Venezuela they were a member of OPEC, and OPEC just needs to go away as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, whatever. Consequently, he passed away in 2013. So, he's no longer a thorn in our side, anyway. 1971, we see the birth of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He was an ISIS leader in Syria. He too was also, it says he died in 2019, but it didn't really say what the circumstances were. If I had to guess, he was probably taken out in a very brutal fashion. But those are the birthdays for today, for July 28th. We go back to our history now. The year is 1540. It's on this day. We've talked about King Henry VII before. King Henry VIII. It's on this day that he would marry privately his fifth wife, Catherine Howard. So they were married on this day. 210 years later, the year is 1750, Johann Sebastian Bach dies at the age of 65. He is arguably one of the greatest music composers of all time. So he passed away on this day in 1750. 1794, okay, we talked about this guy just yesterday, I believe. Maximilien Robespierre. He's a radical Jacobin leader and principal figure in the French Revolution. At any rate, it is on this day in 1794 that he's guillotined in front of a cheering crowd. And like I said a few days ago, July just seems to be the month for declaring independence, and today is no different. It is on this day in 1821 that Peru would declare its independence from Spain. In 1868, we have the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution is put in motion. Basically, what that did is it defined citizenship. It defined what makes someone a citizen, and it was more for addressing the freed slaves, the freed African Americans post-Civil War. But essentially, what it is, it basically states that to be a citizen of the United States requires you to have been born to parents who are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, meaning your parents have to be subject to the U.S. laws. You have to be answerable to the jurisdiction of the United States. So several years ago, when Ted Cruz had explained why he was eligible to run for president, even though he was Canadian born, what it was that he was born in Canada, but he was born to American parents who were subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and that made him eligible to run for president. Similarly, all those people that were up in arms about the whole birther thing with Obama, that's a moot point as well. Obama's mother was American. It doesn't matter that his father may have been Kenyan, and it doesn't matter that he may or may not have been born in Kenya. Whether he was born there or not does not matter. His mother was American. His mother was subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Ergo, that meant that Obama was completely legal and justifiably so to run for president. So that is the textbook definition of the 14th Amendment. It doesn't say that you're automatically a citizen if you're born on U.S. soil, because diplomats' children can be born on U.S. soil. It was specifically written to keep diplomats' children born on U.S. soil from actually being declared U.S. citizens. So that answers the notion of whether what they called anchor babies, whether or not they are citizens. By the terminology of the 14th Amendment, they're not U.S. citizens. They're citizens of whatever jurisdiction their parents were beholden to. So, in theory, someone who crosses the border and has their child here in the United States, that child is not an American citizen. That child is a citizen of whatever country the parents came from. So, and the 14th Amendment is really clear on that. However, liberal-leaning courts don't see it that way, and that's the crux that we're in. And it's ultimately going to be one of those things where it's probably going to have to go to the Supreme Court for them to make a final ruling on that once and for all. If we'll ever see that, I don't know. But moving right along. 1932, we see the release of a movie called White Zombie. It was released in New York City. It's a horror genre flavor. It starred Bela Lugosi, who was known as the actor who did a lot of horror movies like, Dracula and zombies and whatnot. In the vein of movies being released, it's on this day that in 1954, the movie On the Waterfront starring Marlon Brando was released in the United States, and it was it's said to have been one of his most iconic roles that he'd ever done. 1976, there's an earthquake that just shatters Tangshan, China, and it killed over 240,000 people. In 1991, Spanish cyclist Miguel Indurain, he won the first of 5 Tour de France titles, and this was his first. It was on this day the first of his 5 titles were won. In 2005, the IRA, that's the Irish Republican Army, they announced that they would end any kind of armed campaign and that they would instead they would pursue peaceful means of attaining their goals. And just a refresher, the IRA is their sole motivation is to see a free Ireland from English influence, from British rule. That's always been their thing, and traditionally in the past they have resorted to acts of terrorism and violence to get the point across that they want the British to leave them alone and they want to have a free Ireland. However, there's Northern Ireland and there's the rest of Ireland, and I forget which one is which, but one is very much pro-British rule, and the other is pro-independent. And I'm wanting to say that all the fighting is in Northern Ireland, if I remember right. So they're the ones that are wanting to contest and overthrow British rule, whereas the rest of the country is like, we don't care. So I could have that mistaken. I'm not sure. I knew that there was one time when I worked at the World Trade Center in Portland, there was a PG employee there that was from Ireland, and I wanted to pick his brain so bad about the nuances and the politics and just learn more about Irish culture, because I'm predominantly German and Irish, but I know very little about either of their cultures, really. But I do pride myself on especially my German and Irish heritage, because, my last name's German, and I'm related to the Kennedys, and so there's the Irish. But I mean, I have German and Irish on both sides of the family. So today's featured event is it's on this day that World War I begins. The year is 1914, and using the assassination of Archduke Francis Ferdinand, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, they put out these demands that there was just no way that Serbia could acquiesce to. So under that context, they declared war. But the funny thing is, they really didn't have a standing army. So they, as I'm understanding it, that's why Germany was so quick to sign this treaty pact with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they're basically like, well, we've got the army, we can do this, so you sign this and we'll give us permission to march through your lands, and we'll go kick the crap out of the Slavic people for you. And that's really what it came down to, is that because Archduke Ferdinand was murdered by Slavic nationals, it was one of those things where they wanted to declare war on that country, and they did. And so it quickly became, I've explained this before, it's likened to a barroom brawl, right? The two principal people are involved, but this guy socks this guy. Now you have this guy jumping in to go sock this guy because he was this guy's friend. Now you've got this guy socking, this guy, and before long it's a free for all. And that's the best way. I've seen a caricature of this, and it's the best way to describe World War One is thinking of it as a barroom brawl where two people go at it, and then another guy jumps in to defend his buddy, and then another guy jumps in to defend his buddy against that guy, and then so on and so on and so on. And before you know it, it cascades into a situation where the whole bar, they're fighting over nothing, over somebody else's issue. So realistically, it should have been localized to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and their dealings with what then became known as Yugoslavia. It was their issue. Germany should have stayed out of it, but Germany wanted to expand its sphere of influence. So that's that's why they were made to pay so heavily at the war's conclusion, because they were really the not so much the ringleaders, but they definitely were they conflict they conflagrate. I'm trying to use the word, not using it right. They made it worse. They were definitely the aggressors, and they definitely blew it out of proportion and made it into a global issue. Well, and a European issue than it needed to be. So, yeah, that's it. That's this day in history for July 28th. We'll do it again tomorrow for July 29th, and we'll go from there. So, be well, take care, have a great day, and be blessed, and we'll see you again soon. All right, take care. Bye.